Hi there, this is Marty, and I'm here with you on YouTube, and I am sharing my most recent blog post titled Notable Plutonium 210 Victims. And the purpose for doing this is because polonium 210 is a man-made isotope. And what's different about polonium 210 is that it is an alpha emitter. And normally alpha emitters aren't that big of a deal. Your skin can block it if it's outside the body. But in the case of these polonium 210 poisoning victims, they ingested it, they swallowed it. And in the most controversial case of all is Alexander Litvinenko. And the circumstances that he was poisoned are questionable. The news is reporting that he was having numerous meetings with some Russian comrades, and it all culminated in this meeting he had in a bar where he was drinking green tea, and he took a few sips of the tea, and he said it tasted bitter. But when they tested the teapot, it was raging hot with polonium 210. So the interesting thing about this case is that the Russians say that the US and UK masterminded it, and the US and the UK say that the Russians masterminded it. I mean, we will never know what really happened, but we do know that when polonium 210 and other alpha emitters are swallowed or ingested, it is pretty much a done deal. And if I can get my page to move here, okay, here we go. And here's when I was researching this, I felt like I was reading something out of a horror movie script. I really did, or a horror novel, because of the destructive nature of these alpha emitters. And I remember this news story years ago. Alexander Litvinenko or Viktor Yushchenko, and I had the two confused. I thought that Viktor Yushchenko was Litvinenko, but I was wrong, because Yushchenko was the Ukrainian president who was poisoned by dioxin, and that caused some facial scarring. And if you look them up, it's not that pretty. If you go to my LinkedIn page, I did a post there, and I did post pictures of what he looks like now, or he did after the poisoning. Now, what I do remember is Alexander Litvinenko laying in his white, crisp linen hospital bed, and his lips were red. I remember that. He was bald and his lips were red, and he was laying in bed in this crisp white hospital bed. And I do remember that image. That image did stick with me. So I decided, I'm going to do some polonium research after I did my list of 10 radioactive isotopes and the nutrients they mimic, which is another YouTube video. It was actually my first YouTube video, so it's a little bit, rough, but you'll have to forgive me on that one. I will get better as time goes on. So, when I was researching it, it just seemed really typical that, the media really minimizes the danger of radioactive isotopes to begin with, but they completely glossed over the fact that polonium is actually a highly radioactive isotope. And they were calling it, I'm going to do my air quotes, okay, polonium poisoning. Well, if you don't know that polonium is a radioactive isotope, then you're going to think, well, maybe it's an ingredient in Drano or some other toxic household substance, cleaning substance, right? But nothing could be further from the truth, because polonium 210 is an alpha emitter, as I mentioned previously, but it also has a short half-life. And the initial symptoms can be confused with the stomach flu. And when he went to the hospital initially, that's what he was diagnosed with, the stomach flu, and they sent him home. Okay, now here is the diagram of the teapot. And the majority of it was found on the outside of the spout here. So, they probably poured it in this way, to poison him. Because there's reports, one of the articles says that, the person who was cleaning out the teapot afterwards noticed that there was this sludge in the bottom. And, that leftover polonium did wind up in the, water supply, the sewage of the London water supply. So, this is nothing to poo-poo. Drano, it goes down the sink, it clears out your drain. It pollutes. Yes, it pollutes. It's a polluting chemical, but it's not radioactive. So the deal is polonium 210 is highly water soluble, as is cesium-137. And when we're talking about water soluble isotopes, we're talking that it's pretty serious business, because it's very easy for it to contaminate the rainfall, our drinking water, our bathing water, the water that our fields, our crops are irrigated with, the water that our livestock drinks. This is always serious business. So whenever you hear that a radioactive isotope is water soluble, you need it, a little ding ding, whistle, needs to go off in your head, because you need to pay attention to that. So the first symptom when you ingest polonium 210 is it starts to destroy your gut lining. And within minutes, the cell lining of your stomach begins to shed. And the intestines, the soft, unprotected skin inside the throat and mouth also suffers the same fate, because wherever it comes into contact, it's just going to destroy it. And polonium bombards the tissues as it comes into contact with them, because the alpha particles leave your body's internal organs vulnerable. And if you think of it like this, the sun puts out rays, and these rays, can penetrate through the darkness. And alpha rays have a very penetrating nature when they are ingested. And the alpha particles are always trying to attempt to stabilize themselves. That's the situation with all radioactive isotopes. And that's why antioxidant-rich foods are so great. They have blocking powers, and especially if you have a diet rich in the nutrients and minerals that your body needs in order to block these isotopes, you're going to be that much healthier or better off for it. And you can refer to my video that I mentioned previously, the 10 radioactive isotopes and the nutrients they mimic. So they penetrate the internal portions of your body by knocking the electrons out of orbit, and it leaves a trail of destruction wherever it goes. It's like a cascade, it's like one thing after another. It just keeps falling. And then your cells are assaulted by the radiation when the alpha rays travel through it, and it'll either turn your cells to cancer or it'll kill them. That's pretty much, those are your choices. It's pretty bleak. That's why I said it was like reading something out of a horror movie script. And then as the stomach, now we're moving on to the stomach, okay? So the stomach starts to digest its contents and it draws the polonium into the bloodstream. And from there, the heartbeat drives. So your heart's pumping, pump, 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 pump. It's driving the polonium deeper into the body, and it irradiates the surrounding tissues and organs wherever it goes. Now, radioactive isotopes all have affinity for different tissues and organs in the body. In the case of polonium, it concentrates in your liver, okay, liver, spleen, bone marrow, kidneys, skin, hair follicles. So those are six places where polonium likes to concentrate. And while it's traveling throughout your body and going to these different organs and tissues where it likes to concentrate, your cells are dying. So as you are dying, you first become aware of the sensation of nausea and you start vomiting. That's like the stomach flu misdiagnosis comes in. And then the vomiting turns into a horrible, dreadful headache, followed by fever and diarrhea. Blotchy spots begin to appear on your hands and feet, and then your hair starts falling out in clumps. It's just can't fall out fast enough. And if the amount of the polonium 210 is strong enough, you will fall over because of the overpowering dizzy sensation that you're going to feel as the bottom of your blood pressure drops out. And then once the isotope arrives in your bone marrow, it's pretty much game over, because the bone marrow is a factory where new red blood cells are created. Its alpha rays will ensure that your bone marrow is stripped of their electrons and left corrupt, damaged, or dead. And once the polonium gets inside your bones, it's pretty much game over, as I mentioned before, because the lymphatic system just shuts down and your white blood cells plummet. Your immune system is like, okay, we give up, they surrender. And without functioning white blood cells, your body loses its fight. The fight's over. So one by one, your cells begin to commit suicide. I mean, how disgusting and depressing is that? I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So we have the Alexander Litvinenko is the first notable polonium victim, and now they're saying that Yasser Arafat is another polonium victim. And, there's a lot of backpedaling going on with this. They're saying, oh, we found polonium 210 on his toothbrush, okay, and other personal items, but that doesn't mean that's what he died from, all right? So say what you will about Yasser Arafat, love him, hate him, whatever. The man was probably poisoned with polonium 210, and the Palestinian people loved him. The news media in the West here painted a very bad picture of him, but that's just what they do. They don't like you. They don't agree with you, your politics or whatever. That's it. They're just going to vilify you in the media, and that's just how it goes in this world right now. That's the world we live in. So, and I also provide links in the blog post where you can take a link and read what they have to say about this. So the next one, and this is just a video, a short clip where they found presence and how much the amount of polonium they found on him. And then Madame Curie's daughter. All right, now, Madame Curie, she's a controversial figure if there ever was one. The scientific circles there, like, oh, blah, 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 all hail Madame Curie, And the woman died. I mean, when she died, towards the end of her life, her fingers were like, they had to amputate them because they were all irradiated from working with the radiation. And I found this little meme here about Irene Joliot Curie, and they're saying, oh, you want your kids to be, as wonderful as this family was. Well, I can think of other ways that your family can be notable and wonderful, and it doesn't involve radiation, okay? Think humanitarian projects, okay? Doesn't have to involve radiation, unless you're in the business of decontaminating, or you're working to make the world a better place by getting rid of nuclear radiation. That's something is worthy of being looked up to. But when you see these type of hero worship things, when it comes to the Curies, they never address the issue of the family and how they died, horrible deaths, because they were working with radiation. And back then, very little was known about it, and they died as a result. Now, in the case of Madame Curie's daughter, there was a capsule, Polonium 210, that exploded in 1946, and she died of leukemia 10 years later in 1956. They say it was a direct result of this polonium capsule exploding. Now, she was working with radioactive substances prior to 1946, and certainly after 1946. So doesn't necessarily mean that it was polonium 210 that caused her demise by leukemia, but it's a strong possibility. So radiation is a very serious matter. We are living in a post-Fukushima world. That means that we have to be on guard. Seriously, because we don't know if the snowfall, the rainfall, our crops have been contaminated with Fukushima fallout, and Kerr McGee has been using radiation as a fertilizer for decades. I mean, that's what Chris Silkwood died for. She died because she was a whistleblower, and she was going to let the world know what these people were doing and that it was wrong. They were messing around with plutonium. And if you look on, I can't think of the title of the, it's the PAGs, the post I wrote about PAGs, and I mention Bertel, Rosalie Bertel, and she did some research on that, and I have some information about one of the speeches she gave in regard to that matter. And then there's the whole fracking controversy. They are just destroying our planet with all this fracking, especially going on in the United States. Has it helped the economy? Yes, it has, but at what cost? They won't even release the ingredients of their, I'm going to do my air quotes, proprietary slurry that they use to extract the oil from the ground and during the fracking process. And it's causing our water table to become contaminated. And this is a very serious problem, and it should be taken seriously. So at some point in the future, I'm going to tackle that issue. But in the meantime, I am going to scroll up to the top of my page. I want to show you something. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So right here, you can see, I'm going to bring my cursor over here. I'm not going to bring it over too fast because then it might make some people dizzy. I've been criticized for that before, so I'm very sensitive to that. I don't want to make you guys dizzy. But if you look right here, it says where you can sign up for our mailing list. So if you sign up for my mailing list, just put your first name and your email address, and then you will get, every time I update my blog, you will get a link directly to it, and it will actually be posted on the as an email. The blog post will actually be posted to your email account as a blog post. So anyway, any questions, any comments? Unfortunately, I've had to on my website, I've had to disable the comments. I was just getting way too much spam. So leave a comment on my YouTube channel, Marty LaRue, and again, you can find this post over at nuclearworld.net, not .net, under Polonium. All right, thanks for watching.